Just a quick high-level synopsis for everybody who's on the line so that we can decide if this is a good investment of your time today. The Innovation Factory model at Oakwood is how we tackle those really tough projects, those areas where we have to create a significant amount of business change, and the customer really wants to control that investment and make sure that we're investing their change budget wisely. So in this session today, we're going to talk about the Innovation Factory at a high level, give you a little bit of an introduction to what that is and what it looks like, but in particular, really drill down into those proven results and how we get things done. So, quick intro. We'll first talk about Oakwood's depth and breadth, then a little bit about the Innovation Factory, and then again a little bit about how we actually get things done. So, hopefully you're still in line with this and you think this is going to be a valuable investment in your time. So, to start out, we're going to start with a very quick Oakwood 101 commercial, but we'll keep that very brief. So if you look at Oakwood as a whole, we're comprised of 4 different pillars or 4 different line of businesses. The first of those is our systems management team, which focuses on system automation, data center automation, that whole software-defined data center model. The second is portals and collaborations, or communications and collaborations, which are portals, UC, enterprise content management, that whole business productivity suite. The next, our data management stack, which focuses on big data, the assimilation of data and reporting and outputs. And the third, the fourth, which we all represent, being the application management team, focuses on modernization. Modernization of your apps, your platforms, your processes, and development of how you solve those really complex, broad business challenges. And then across all of these, we have our cloud services, because every time we engage in a conversation around changing the business, we have to factor in the thought of where does this live long term? Does it live in the cloud or does it live on-prem? And how do you provide the systems or the technology that supports that change? And then finally, once the development's done, who's going to make sure that that change happens? Who's going to make sure that you realize that change? And who's going to manage or own that solution once it's implemented? So this is Oakwood's breadth and depth, and it covers the quick, high-level commercial criteria of this particular session. So from here on out, we're just going to dig into making change happen. So at a high level, here's the Oakwood Innovation Factory. Oakwood's Innovation Factory is that catalyst to business change. And we look at business change as requiring 3 parts. The first is that business impact, understanding what it is that you want to accomplish, how you want to get there, what those metrics are that let you know that once we get there that we have arrived and we've accomplished that business goal. We focus on delivering that through 3 core parts. Our Discover 3D process, which helps understand and discover the need, our consumption-driven plan, or OCD plan, which you're going to hear Jesse talk about later on in this program, and then the fundamental thought of expectation inspection. So understanding those metrics, and as we go through each leg of any project, checking the business metrics that we're trying to achieve and ensuring that we're getting there the way we planned on. Then in the center of all of the activities that we have are adoption and users. Because if you look at the classic innovation formula, innovation is derived as invention plus adoption. Well, if we don't have adoption and we don't consider the users as a fundamental component of any innovation or any change, we can't actually ultimately achieve that change. So when we look at users, we think of a few different things. That ecosystem of devices and tools that they use, the modern platforms we use to deliver data or tools to them, and that UX or that design, that experience that our end users have. So that's how we achieve the change. Then deeper than that, we have our actual continuous value delivery program, which is how we derive the proven results that we're after. And this program or methodology focuses on 8 core areas. The first is business process and adoption, so thinking about the users first. The second is design and user experience, thinking about those users and their experience secondarily to that business process. And then all of the things you usually see inside of an agile program. So the architecture and the development, quality assurance. Once we're done with development, thinking about how are we going to realize this change. So releasing and deploying. And how do we put it on a platform that allows us to scale and grow and change as the business changes. And then finally, once something's deployed, how do we manage it? What are the operations that really support that change? As a whole, this is the continuous value delivery methodology. And today we're going to talk about 5 of these particular buckets. So you'll hear Jesse speak at the end about business process and adoption. Throughout the middle of this conversation, we'll hear Caitlin talk about design and user experience and iterative capacity. We'll hear David Wickersheim talk about some high-level continuous maturity when we're talking about architecture and development. and Rick Peterson talked about quality assurance, that foundation for being continuous and having a continuous maturity. And finally, we'll hear Ronnie talk about release and deployment and how we implement that continuous change by pushing out to production frequently. So that's going to be our high-level agenda today, stepping through the CVD plan. Now, at the foundation of that, we have one fundamental component that's important to understand before we dive into anything today. You're going to hear a lot of people in the session talk about failing early, failing often, taking small steps, understanding how the changes we make impact the real world. We call this minimally viable product, and we represent this in something that we call the BML, or build, measure, learn, demo cycles. Putting this in more business terms, what this means is that we provide the freedom and the flexibility to dream big. Dream as big as we want, because business change takes big change. But build really small. We release what we build often, we measure everything that we do, we test everything that we do, and we never stop learning from the environment around us. And this is our lean product development approach called MVP. So it's treating every single product as a startup and treating every single activity as a business change. And what this allows us to do is reduce the noise, decrease the waste, and really focus on what matters so that we're really prioritizing that investment to make change. So our first step of this journey is to talk about continuous maturity. Dave Wickersheim is going to talk to us about how we can evolve the way that we take things to market in a continuous maturity model. Dave?
Great, thank you. We're going to start off basically, or at the most basic level, which is our source code being stored in a source code repository. This does several things for us. It helps us to protect our work. We can perform backups of this. It allows us to keep track of our history as the product and our business matures over time. The changes that we've made are in here in the source code. It also allows us the first fundamental stop in our road to experimentation. We can take the code, we can branch it, play with it, work with it in isolation from all the other developers without affecting their work schedules and their timelines. Our next step is to build on top of this by taking all that source code, all the pieces together, and build it in an automated way. This is our first big unit test, where we're getting all our pieces together, we're compiling it, making sure that the components, at the very least, know how to talk to each other. From here, this allows us to focus on our development and not so much on how do I make all these various pieces work together. Our next step is to then add in basic tests. It could be something as simple as unit tests. It can be more complex testing that our QA folks would use. And this allows us to take our code, build it, and then perform these tests. The benefits to us here is it helps us reduce risks. It helps us to reduce the overhead of development and deployment costs. It also enhances our reputation for producing quality work. When we can find a bug early or a problem early, we can fix it. As my mind understands the code, what I'm working on today, I can fix it faster today than I can fix it faster tomorrow. Sounds a little funny. Our next step in all of this is continuous deployment. This is where we're going to take all the parts from before, building the code, running the tests, making a couple of small decisions. Did the right tests pass? Did all the tests pass? Taking our code and pushing it out into the world for consumption in an automated way. We've got a lot of great features that can help us do this and great methodologies to get code out there into a state that people can have and work with. This provides us with a lot of great benefits. One is time to value. In my mind, the fewer minutes that it takes us to get from code, something I've worked on, to an actual feature that an end user can use, that means end users could buy our product. We could get to them consuming our product and paying us for it. So time to value. This also gives us the way to get back into our decision process being driven by deploy, measure, and adjust. We deploy our code, we watch our measurements, we take that information back, decide what to do, make the next plan. So we now have better metrics, better thought processes, better data for continuously working and moving forward. Our last step is the continuous value delivery. In here, this is where all the pieces have finally come together, where we're now pulling in the continuous deployment, the continuous integration. We're pulling in all the new features that have been pulled, that have been requested for this build. We get them together and we can put them out there. This gives us a way to experiment early, experiment often, and in a very safe way. Those that experiment are typically called innovators. Look at a small company called Apple. They've experimented, they failed, and they've learned from their failures to build something better. And they are known as a company that produces innovative products with a high level of quality. So overall, our biggest value inputs into here is that we're always adding value through increasing automation and refining our processes.
Great recap. So, great session. To recap that, at a really high level, what we're talking about here is building together as a team, deploying what we build together as a team, making sure we can get that out to the customer collectively as a broader team, learning from everything that happens there and shape that to turn it into business value change. That's huge. Now, just as a pre-qualifier, when we talk about CVD or an innovation factory, it doesn't require you to get to these levels of maturity. Just that we have that understanding that we're focused on shortening that time to market, like Wick mentioned, getting there faster, learning quicker, and deploying better quality code.
Because we're saying continuous maturity. It's not that we've reached maturity and we can do it in 1 step or 5 steps. It's constantly revisiting. As we learn more in continuous integration and continuous deployment, that may cause us to go back to our source code and restructure it in different ways. Mm-hmm. The process continues on and on.